months. Hospitals are not being allowed, nursing homes. We have a really big problem right now in our country, and it's not a COVID problem, it's a courage problem. And so like with the situation with the schools, if just a couple kids would film being suspended while not wearing their masks and be willing to publicize it, and then parents go and protest outside the schools, it really, if you're going to do it, do a video, get it posted on the pages, teach, educate while you're doing it. The same with the library. A group of you go into the library with your masks on, and when you get in there, take them off and say, this is my library. I have a right to be in here. I'm going to look at books. Please leave me alone. And make them call the cops and trespass you. Live stream it. Let the public see what's happening. If we all just avoid the places where we're being the most persecuted, then we're not bringing attention. It's kind of like what Ammon did in Idaho. And there's a lot of value in going and being willing to be trespassed or cited to show the public this is how far they are willing to go to violate our liberties and to dictate us. So I would just encourage you to just keep getting people together. When you do it, make the videos. If you have to, get a tent. When we went to the prosecutor's house for Kelly Carroll. We went to all the prosecutors' houses. Then we started going to city councilmen, and then we ended up at the mayor's house. And at the mayor's house, we found a neighbor across the street who supported us. And I asked her if we could camp in front of her property that night. And she said, yeah, you could totally camp here. And we were live streaming it. So we were letting people know on live camera, hey, if we have to, we'll camp out front for Kelli Carroll. Our troops go and fight at foreign wars and get legs blown off. And here we are. We don't even want to get a simple little citation because we have a courage problem here. We don't know how to fight the enemy on our own native soil. We only understand bombs and tanks and missiles. That's what we know as Americans. You cross us, we're going to blow you up. But then when it comes to our soil here, well, what do? We can't make those threats here. We'd be in jail. How do we fight this back? And so I just had to go down to the courthouse today and file some papers regarding a dispute, and they weren't going to let me in the courthouse, and they called the police over, and it became an issue. And I said, I have papers to file. This is my courthouse. I'm not putting on a mask, and I don't have to. And it's, intimidating, and I'm shaking because I hate confronting tyrants, especially when they have guns and badges and authority to tase me, and the public won't even care. And in the end, he looked at my husband and I, and he said, what did he say? Just do what you're going to do. Make your excuses. Do it fast. And it was just so rude and disrespectful. But we had to go in there first and be willing to make that scene. I mean, we were just trying to get in, right? We weren't trying to make a scene. But then when they pushed the issue, we pushed back. I have not worn a mask to this day, and I will not wear a mask, and neither has my family. But there's places we have to go. So people say, well, if you want to go in there, you have to wear a mask. Well, what if you push the issue? What if the first time it didn't work, but the second or third time it did? Shutting down the library, that's great, because that library shouldn't be operating anyway if they're going to be restricting and, violating specific people's rights and not letting them in. So get a group there, get a tent, throw it up on the sidewalk. Hey, we're going to camp out here until, you do that 1 or 2 times in a few different places, and you guys will develop a name and a reputation as the people who really do what they say and say what they do. And then it kind of gives you that power to be able to say, guys, we're not leaving. We can't leave because we love this country so much. We have to sacrifice our time and our, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to restore the rights to this country again. And you guys can do that. We've got the tenacity within our people's rights system that, we can make a difference, but we need principled people to take a stand. You don't need 1,000. You need a small handful. Another case where we had a great victory before people's rights started, somebody contacted me in January about a little girl who had been medically kidnapped from CPS. And I won't go into that long story. It's on Kylie's Fight, a little girl named Chrissy. I'm sorry, a little girl named Kylie Dixon, Chrissy's daughter. And that case was turned upside down, and they were turned on their ear because me and John Lamb from Montana and Roger Roots from also Montana, but he was in Nevada at the time, showed up and protested at the hospital where they had taken this little girl against her mother's wishes to remove a tumor. It was only the three of us, and that ended up being a month-long protest. They locked the entire OHSU down. OHSU is huge. It's like a small town here in Portland. And they locked the entire thing down. They brought in the city of Portland police. They brought in everybody. I mean, part of it is because we have a reputation now. When we show up, they know we're not going to leave. But there was three of us in front of the hospital with signs that say OHSU medically kidnaps children, reunite mother and daughter. And they ended up hiding her from there. We had to go to DHS for 16 days straight from 8 in the morning until 9 at night and protest there. Then they moved all the caseworkers home. So we went to the caseworker's house. He fled when we got there, and he had the cops escort him out. We did a barbecue in his neighborhood, handed out flyers to the whole neighborhood saying, do you know who is in your neighborhood? Like, he is participating in kidnapping children. She was sexually assaulted in the care of CPS. So we were letting them know that this individual essentially is trafficking children. And so he ended up fleeing. We stayed at his house for 2 nights. And then the following weekend, we went to the DA's house. And we went to the DA's house, finished that weekend, went back into the court hearing, and filled that courtroom. That courtroom was packed, started out with 3 people, ended with hundreds of people. And the caseworker walks in. The DA didn't show up. The lead CPS caseworker did show up. I don't think any of them wanted their faces to be seen because they didn't want us to protest them. And the prosecutor looks at the judge and says, Your Honor, we'd like to dismiss all charges as far as CPS goes and relinquish full care back to the mother. Now, CPS, when you're transferring a child back to a mom, there's a mandatory 6-month oversight where they monitor the home once a month, make sure that they want to know where the child is going. They investigate the home. It's this huge process. That day, they handed Kylie back over to Chrissy, 100% free and clear, literally said, we're done. We don't want anything to do with this case. So that was another victory without even having, our text system set up or anything. I just used Facebook. I used Facebook, and I used my determination to let them know we're not going to give up on this child. And we're not just standing outside screaming, we hate CPS. We're standing outside telling people the story. Do you know who Chrissy Dixon is? Do you know her little girl, Kylie? Do you know what they did to her? Tyrants hate being exposed. So the hospital, and then I'll wrap this up. If you have somebody who needs a procedure and they're making them test, if they feel called and if they feel able to, encourage them not to test and not to have the procedure, depending on what the procedure is. Okay. I'm not saying it's better to die than to be COVID tested. That's not what I'm saying. If they are willing to not do the test, sit out front with them at the hospital with a sign that says the name of the hospital and is refusing my kidney transfer. Or is refusing whatever this procedure. Like, make it as factually inflammatory as you can, and then sit out front with a camera all day and tell each person who comes and goes what that hospital is doing. Do live streams, tag all your friends, make sure everybody knows what that hospital is doing. Put the pressure on the hospital so that if that person gets sick or dies or has an injury because of the procedure not done, that the public weight will fall back on the hospital or the staff that refuse that service. There is a lot of power in exposing the shame around what these tyrants are doing. Say their name, say the name of the doctor. Stephanie at the front desk is refusing this surgery that is life-threatening to my loved one over a test, over a virus with a 99.9% survival rate. And I mean, you just talk about it, tell people, do the videos, do the posts every day, and see if you guys can't make a difference at that hospital. Now, hospitals are deep into the pit of the system. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of manipulation that's going. There's a lot of power. The system is starting to use the hospitals the way they have used the police. So the beginning of this, they started saying, save a doctor's life, stay home. And I told my husband, this feels like the back the blue narrative. When you hear back the blue, it doesn't make sense. Like, do we back all judges? Do we back all priests? Do you back all pastors? Do you back every Bundy? I don't know. I'd like to meet the Bundys first before I decide if I back all Bundys. Does that make me a bad person? Or does it make me not an idolater, right? An idolater just says, I'm going to worship all golden calves, all doctors. So anyway, sorry, that was a rant. When they started saying that we needed to honor the staff at the hospitals, I told my husband, they're going to use the hospitals to oppress the people next. Watch. Because people are cheering these hospital workers in the streets, but the nurses are telling us that are friends, we're empty. We have no patience. I don't know why people are praising us like this. Like, this isn't what they're making it out to be. And now what do we have? We have nurses and doctors saying, I'm sorry, I can't let you in for the safety of my patients without a test. And if you speak out against it, what, do you hate doctors? What is wrong with you? They're just trying to keep the staff safe. And it's the same shaming that I get now when I say Officer Chad Williams was out of line bringing charges against Kelly Carroll. And people say, well, do you not like police? I say, no, I love freedom. I love justice and liberty for all. And I kind of have a thing about tyrants. They just bother me. And tyranny comes in all uniform shapes, sizes, right? And so if you can take the hospital scenario and you can say, no, I don't hate all nurses and doctors, but this doctor is refusing to help, which he has his own medical oath that they swear to help their patients, over a politically motivated test that is completely irrelevant to my loved one's health. And bring the attention that way. That's what I do with the police or the judges or whatever the title is. I bring attention to that individual that's violating the rights of the people. And I try to pull my neighbors out of the idolatry, because the idolatry is what's gotten us here. There is no way that we would be in the position that we were in if right now we have entire factions of some of our most principled people that will not stand up against the police because they wave a flag and they say, I back the blue. And so it's like it confuses their head when a police officer violates a loved one and they're like, I can't call them out because it's a cop. Instead of the normal thought being, well, if a protester violates my loved one, I call that protester a criminal. If the bank, steals money, I say, that was criminal of you. If a police officer does it, it's just as criminal. If a hospital does it, it's criminal. It's wrong to violate and to withhold care from somebody because they won't take a test is wrong. It's wrong if a police arrests a mother because she's at the park with her kids. These are things that are wrong, and we need to get back to individual responsibility. It's wrong of the library staff to refuse somebody to enter a public building that you own. It's wrong. Expose them, do a video about them, talk about them. Put Jonathan Young, I had big pictures of him on big posters that I would show up and protest in his neighborhood. Get a picture of the staff at the library. We can say all day, well, I don't want to do that because that makes me feel bad to pick on them. No, we're not picking on them. We're actually caring about them enough and caring about our children's future liberty to say, I love you too much to not tell you that what you're doing is wrong. It's wrong. You need to let us in the library. Oh, I'll lose my job. Do what's right and let the consequences follow. If they fire you, we will stand with you. We will find you another job that isn't at a tyrannical library that wants to dictate the people and be that strong arm for the government. So with every situation, I would just encourage you guys to look at the heart of who the person is, talk to them directly. I used to talk to the prison guards, and people would say, don't say anything to the prison guards. It's not their fault. Without the prison guards, political prisoners would not be held in jail. Without the police, anything Governor Inslee or Brad Little does would be null and void. Without the people who are willing to enforce it, these politicians would be nothing but bobbleheads that we all laughed at. So we need to take it seriously when anybody enforces, whether it's at the hospital, the library, the police department, the school. We need to hold them personally responsible in a loving but a bold way that kind of shakes them and wakes them up and says, right now, you're being a part of tyranny. You're literally going to be a piece of the foundation that our children suffer under someday. Don't do that. Don't, even if you get fired, step out, stand up, unite, be bold. But unless people are willing to take that stand and be persecuted for it, we're just going to keep getting farther and farther down the rabbit hole. Sorry, that was a long little tirade I went on.
Thank you so much. We know it's getting late. We really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, good job, and just keep meeting, guys. Thank you. Keep meeting and keep working together to do what you guys are comfortable doing, and just make sure whatever you're doing, you're pushing back the giant a little bit. Sometimes we slay them, and sometimes we just push them back a little bit and just keep our loved ones a little bit more free. But keep pushing back whatever you have to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Hey, you're welcome. God bless, guys. Good night.
God bless.